everyone. Tonight's guest is a film industry pro who's shaking things up in the best way. John Edward Keough is an award-winning producer whose latest short, Solus, is turning heads everywhere. With his partner, Tommy J. Dwyer, he's rocking it through HollyWooot Film Group. Yep, that's a T on the end of that. It's co-owned with Leanne Sylvia, and he's all about making movies sustainable and soulful. From script to screen, John gets it done. Welcome to the show, John Edward Keough. Woohoo! Thanks for being here. So how did you first catch the film bug? What was your origin story in this wild industry?
That's a great question. So I grew up pretty poor. I had a single mom, and she used to, every once in a while, she would check me out of school and take me to the movies. And the first one that I really remember was Back to the Future 3. That's the cowboy one, if you remember, which isn't the best one. But at the time, I think I was 10 or 11. And she came and got me out of school on my birthday and brought me to see Back to the Future 3. And that really got me started with a love of movies. I was blown away by it. And of course, it was connected to my mom. And so that's how it kind of always stuck with me. And then she's also the one who got me into reading and writing. And so it just made me want to do that and be a part of those things. And so ever since I was 11, I've been stuck on movies.
I love it. And I love that your mother's name is Frances. And my mother's name was Frances. And I actually did the same thing for my son. And here's Jamie Hill saying The Flying Train.
That's right. It was the best one, right? The train was the time machine in that one. So it was just cool. Mary Steengarden was in that, right? And so just loved that movie. And it's funny how when you think about a movie through nostalgia, it like is better than other people remember. So a lot of people love the Back to the Future series, and that's the one they don't like. And I love it because I can't get those good memories of that experience with my mom out of my head.
So sweet. I love it. You've got a lot of years in the game. So what's the biggest change you've seen over time?
Well, so the film industry has shifted, especially more recently. It's had a dramatic shift because of AI. But the film industry shifted away from like a regionalized filmmaking economy probably in the late 90s and early 2000s. So that's when there was still like an investment in local areas. New York City had a lot of productions. The South had their own productions. Obviously, LA, the Gold Coast, all that stuff. And then there was a New England kind of flavored thing. So you would get films that had different distinctions. Of course, the studio system had a lot of places where they could make things, but at least they tried to make movies that connected to regions, right? And so then you got people believing in the stories, right? If a movie was set in Boston, there was enough elements about it that really connected. And now there's been a dramatic shift away as there's been more people, I think, in charge of studios that care more about business than they really do care about movies. And so they've kind of lost that focus on what people care about. And you see that a lot, even in the big time blockbusters like the comic book movies. You see that the comic book fans get mad because the studio decided to ignore a detail, or they changed the name of a character, or whatever the thing is. But that attention to detail used to mark movies and make movies this thing that impacted you for your entire life. It would carry on and be the thing that you always remembered, because of how detailed it was. I mean, think about all the conspiracy theories about a couple of the movies that you were in the Tromaverse, right? That people still to this day, which, by the way, you have tried to dispel some of these conspiracies, but people are so focused on the details that they start making up their own versions, and they write books, and then they too become movie makers and creators themselves. And I think that there's too many films today that are produced that are just, they're just really there for background noise, which is not necessarily how I thought of movies growing up. And so I'm trying to help at least a little bit in my corner of the world to bring it back to that.
Good. We need that. Jake jumped up here with a comment. He saw the first one on a summer break. So he's another one playing hooky for a moment. Oh no, summer break. You were legal, Jake. Good job. Jake's coming to us from Australia.
Hey,
Uh, I was thinking for a second, though, that you also really a writer, a journalist, a poetry writer. Tell us a little bit about that. Here's Grace Cavalier, who is a poet, poet laureate. She was for all of Maryland. She goes, "What do you value in film?" Hi,
I
Grace.
think I think I value story over everything, right? I think that you can make a movie that's visually stunning, but the story is not good. And so when that happens, you're sitting there in the theater and you're wowed about it, but then you leave and you completely forget it, right? And there's a ton of movies that are like that. I think that that's important. You want a story that matters. You want a story that connects with you. It doesn't necessarily have to be that every story is like a profound, earth-shattering thing, but it should be a story that makes sense. I think that the uncanny valley, that's when people realize that things aren't really real, is a thing that affects us more and more, especially as our world shifts into technology. So film, the whole purpose of the vehicle is to deliver a good story. And when you have a good story, you can overcome a lot of technical things, if that makes sense.
Perfect. Um, oh, I love you too, Grace. What sparked your passion for getting movies made from pen to popcorn?
So I was working at the biggest prop house in New England, which is called Westerman's Prop House. It's here in Worcester, Massachusetts, and it's a kind of like a secret thing, or like a referral only. And the general manager there, his name is Dan Diaz. He gave me an opportunity to be involved with basically loading the trucks for a lot of movies, if that makes sense. And so, I get to work with production designers and props masters and, set deck, and got to see the art department side of film. And it really got me excited as a writer. And I started to think about things and, kind of go along. And I got to work with a lot of student films and smaller projects. So I got to see kind of what happens on a smaller project is you have a person who's the writer, the director, the electric, the grip, the crafty, they do everything, right? And so you start to see those roles. And I was given opportunities to get onto some sets and kind of just experience it. And I got some cool, industry stories, I guess, from my time there. But the thing that really struck me was how the operation of films worked, and I'm good at organizing. And so I started to get interested in the idea of being a producer and what that meant. And so as I developed relationships in the industry, the kind of local hyper New England industry, I started to ask for different roles. And when I left Westerman and started my own production company, I was able to kind of hit the ground running, if that makes sense, and really jump onto a lot of things. And so, but even when you do that, you still have to kind of prove yourself. And I think what's happening this year in particular is that the results from the last year, people go and say, wow, he got this and this and this and this made. And it looks like I'm doing a lot, but I'm not. I'm not, I think my number one skill is I know what I'm not good at. And then I find people to help me. Right. So the CEO of HollyWooot Film Group, Leanne Sylvia, she's a tremendous editor and a tremendous accountant, right? So she has experience working on film as an accountant and as a prop master. She's done a bunch of different roles as well, and she just thinks differently than me. And so because I know that I'm not that good at those things, she's come on and helped me with that. And then Tommy is a tremendous writer, and as a writer, I think some of the folks like Grace will probably know this. You need a writer who can challenge you to respect them, right? And so if you meet a writer that you don't think is a good writer, you just don't respect them. And with Tommy, I respect him as a writer, and so that really built our partnership together and really made me say, okay, this guy can write. And because I knew that he could write, I knew he could tell a good story, and then his commitment to the same ideal. So meeting those two folks really were key. And then there's a third person, and you met him a little bit. He took pictures with you. So Manny Alvarado from Manny J Media. So Manny's commitment to the community. He's a community news guy, and he does a lot of coverage of things that you wouldn't normally see because the news has kind of gone away from local coverage of a city like Worcester. And Manny's just belief in in the community kind of has also flavored what I do. So those three influences have really made the journey of HollyWooot happen. They each have a different perspective that I don't have, and having them allows me to add those things to films. And now we're starting to get things done more and more and more.
Perfect. So how did you link up with Tommy J. Dwyer to kick off this producing journey?
So, so it's a funny story. It's a very modern story. So um, basically, I was forming HollyWooot Film Group, and of course, the woot is just a thing that I like to say. So I would, I kind of like to be silly. So instead of Hollywoo, I would say HollyWoot, and I just enjoyed saying that word. And then what happened was, I decided to do the Google Business Suite. So when you set up a business, you have to put Google Business and do your listing. And so when I did that, it asked me, "Do you mean Hollywoo?" And I said no, but I clicked on it anyways, and of course it brought up this thing, HollyWoo the show. And it turned out at the same time I was doing HollyWoot Film Group, Tommy Dwyer was doing HollyWoo the show. So he had done this proof of concept television series, and I saw it, so I messaged him on Facebook on Messenger, right? Which I don't really like that, but I did. I sent him a message, and I said, "Hey, you got this thing coming up." He was having a premiere, and so I said, "Hey, can we bring Manny and do the red carpet?" And he just said yes.
The power of yes.
His premiere of that show, and Manny interviewed him and a bunch of other people, and we got to watch the premiere, and we just were like instant friends. And then our value system kind of matched up. We kind of had the same idea. We didn't work together immediately. We just were friends first, and we were kind of going through and talking, and then we started to come together, especially last year, on a bunch of different projects. And the rest of the story,
Woohoo! Woohoo! Let's see. Grace said, "Do you write as well?" Yes, he writes as well. Poetry,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, so my start as a writer came as a poet. My mom was a poet, and
Of course.
my mom had a long autobiography that she was writing that she has never finished. And so
Ooh.
my dream as a writer was to be able to become an established enough writer to help my mom get her story finished. And
And
so I started with poetry. I started submitting poetry when I was younger. And then it's funny because right before the show, I was actually looking at this old thing. I used to keep a poetry tracker of all the submissions that I used to submit. And I started getting published in 2011. And since then, I've been published a bunch of times under the name John Edward Keough. So you can look up those poems. And then I started getting published as an essayist. And then maybe 5 or 6 years ago, I started working as a journalist, first as a freelance journalist, so writing about like community things. And then and that kind of led to me and Manny getting together. And then I still do that. I write articles both under HollyWoot News, which is like celebratory of local artists here in New England. And then funny, the first issue just dropped today. I now write a weekly article about the city council here in Worcester for This Week in Worcester, which is an online newspaper.
I was wondering about that. How does this fit in? Thank you for explaining that. And how did
So
you meet
This
Leanne?
Week in Worcester, that's Tom Marino. That's Evan. Hi, Evan. Hey, buddy. Evan is one of my creators. We're producing an X-Men film, a fan film that Evan wrote, probably in June, and so he's a good guy, director, writer, star. Get Evan in your movies. Any of you producers and directors that are watching the chat, and so This Week in Worcester is owned by a guy named Tom Marino. And Tom Marino is another guy who just community advocate, cares about the people of Worcester. And of course, obviously, I do HollyWoot. The Woo, by the way, is Worcester. That's the nickname for Worcester, is the Woo. And so that's kind of where that comes from. And so he does the more on like the writing part. You don't really have a print newspaper anymore, but he does an online one. And so I've written for him for a little bit. And then he like supports stuff like the Dead of Winter Horror Festival. He writes the ultimate guide to the Dead of Winter Horror Festival every year. And then HollyWoot News, which is my little mini paper that I do 10 questions with local filmmakers. He publishes that as well on thisweekinworcester.com.
Oh, nice. Well, give us that so we can send it out to our people who have subscribed at the end. Eric, can you add that to the
Absolutely.
list? Very cool. And Leanne, so how did you meet Leanne? Where does she fit in?
So I was working at Westerman's Prop House,
Uh-huh.
and Leanne was a volunteer prop master, so she wasn't making any money, on a little film called Plus Ones. And I had a system that I had designed on Dropbox, which allowed me to take pictures for Dan when someone was doing an order, right? And the first time I ever met Leanne, she was like, "Hey, that's nice, but it could be way better."
Love you, Leanne. Yes.
And I was like, "This girl is great," right? So she's been a part of everything we've done pretty much since then, and so that's how I met Leanne.
Perfect. Good job, Leanne. And I love her little frog hat. I met her in Boston, in Worcester as well. Any early film gig that still makes you laugh or cringe when you look back at it?
So when I was working at Westerman, right, was a really amazing experience. I got to do like some interesting stuff. But one of the things I got to do is I got to be an extra in a Hallmark Christmas movie called Christmas on Ice. And
Oh,
they
shucks.
and Danny gave me the day off to go and be an extra on the film for the experience.
Mhm.
And it was absolutely freezing cold, like just like epically freezing cold. And several of the extras that were supposed to be there didn't come because it was so cold. So I was there. I think I was there for almost 6 hours walking around the ice skating rink, which is in Worcester City Hall Plaza, right? And so if you watch the movie, I like apparently must have been really busy in the movie because I'm like moving around all over the place in the background because they didn't have as many people, so they had to keep putting us in different spots. But of course, I know what I look like, so I can point myself out. I'm like, oh, there I am. Oh, there I go. Oh, there I go. And so I remember that, and it makes me think about extras and background players and how important they are because filling in the background is a lot of short films and a lot of kind of projects that don't think about that end up missing out, and it's distracting to the viewer, right? And so in this particular case, probably nobody but me sees me moving around back there as much,
You'd be
but it is an
surprised.
important thing.
Those audiences are very sharp. And with all the technology now, you can freeze it and go, wait a minute, and whew, they catch more stuff than directors let things slip by. So Solus is racking up a lot of acclaim. What's the story behind that? What brought it to life?
All right, so Solus. So again, Tommy is just an amazing writer, and so he came to me a little bit before Christmas time last year, and said he wanted to put a film into the Dead of Winter Horror Festival, which I'm one of the organizers of that festival. And I said, all right, well, yeah, there you go. Cynthia made an appearance at this year's Dead of Winter, and what happened was I said, well, yeah, there you go. There's that VIP pass. I'm glad you got one of those. That's good. That's good that you got that. And he said he wanted to get it in, and of course, we only had like at the point, I think it was like 6 weeks, right, to get it done. And we wanted to make sure we finished before the deadline for submissions, all those different things. And so he wrote it, and he had probably went through like 6 revisions in 2 weeks. And then the DP, his name's Stevie Schloss. Stevie is ultra talented. Eventually, he'll be DP in big time productions because he is that good. He gave us a deal on his services for the weekend, and I had to say yes because it was such a good deal that I was like, okay, we have to green light the picture. So we got him on board, and then we started to add crew and cast, and so we decided to try to make the best possible thing we could. Jordan Tofolo, Devin Petrie, James Labonte, Luis Mara. We got an incredible cast, and Stuart Valberg came on as creative producer. Leanne was the line producer and the production coordinator. Just had talent upon talent upon talent upon talent.
Nice,
And
nice.
so, I mean, we just had to get it done. And so, I'm going to miss everybody, but there's a bunch of other people that worked on it. Bridget Cannell, who's a director in her own right. She was the first AC. I'm sure I'm going to forget people, but Manny was a PA on that movie. And we just got people opportunity, and then the team just came together. Crazy thing about the movie is on the second day of filming, we had a snowstorm, right? In the middle of the
Of course.
filming. And we couldn't finish. And so we had only planned for 2 days. And so I had to make the decision. It was like, you had to put my big boy producer pants on. And I had to say, no, we got to stop, guys. We have to stop. I had already gone outside and cleaned off everybody's car. And it was like snowing. So we stopped and we had a third day. And we were very, 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 very blessed, seriously, to have the crew basically volunteer to come back the third day because we did not have the budget for that third day, and they all came back except for a couple people, and we were able to put together something pretty amazing. And so I think you got a chance to see it. That movie
Yeah.
was finished, and you saw an edit that took 31 days. So I mean, anybody who's made a film knows how hard it is to not only to start a film but to finish the film, and then to get it edited and edit it into a shape where it could be presented at a festival. And I was blown away by the reaction to it. And now it's starting its kind of bigger, wider festival run, and we have a lot of tremendous feedback from it. But Solus is actually part of a bigger project, which is connected to our overall idea of sustainable filmmaking. But Tommy has written an anthology. So there's 3 movies, and Solus just happens to be leg number 1 of a 3-movie set that we're going to put together and release as an anthology. So it's an inexpensive approach towards getting a feature level package together, kind of to show what we're capable of. And so along with some of the other projects that we're working on, and we're on a ton of different things. We're doing Evan's thing. Bridget Canal, she did Shift, which was another movie that was at the festival. She has Shift 2 coming out. She wants to film that in October. Working with Allison Rothwell to do another short film called Old Friends in May. And then that's just the outside creators. Then Leanne and I have a documentary called Neighborhood Strings that we're working on. And then Tommy has a documentary that he might be getting started real soon as well, not to mention a ton of other stuff.
How exciting.
So
That will get you out of bed in the morning. Woo!
say that. I'm sorry, Cynthia. I didn't mean
That
to
is
step
so
on.
exciting. That will get you out of bed in the morning because you got to like rock and roll.
Yeah, the big thing is that it's a lot of risk for everybody involved. Making films is not an easy thing, and it does take money and investment. But we've been lucky so far to have a bunch of small businesses support the film, right? So they gave us the budget for Solus, and that has allowed us to put together a proof of concept, basically, of what we've been able to do. And then we're going to use that to raise money. We're already beginning that process now to bring in money for the overall project. At the same time, while I'm raising money for Evan's movie and Allison's movie, and then one of the other features I'm on is The Shadow over Innsmouth, that like momentum of all of the projects plus the festivals is allowing us to raise up the credibility of the New England industry from the independent side, because the union side isn't really working right now. And so how do we get more work? Well, we make more stories.
Go create it yourself. That's passion. That's passion. How did you and Tommy get Stolas to stand out in this crowded short film world?
I think it was a commitment to detail is one thing. I think it was the whole crew was pulling in the same direction. They all wanted to do something really, really spectacular.
Love
And I
it.
think Tommy made a bold choice in focusing on subtlety versus kind of more grandiose filmmaking. And I think that there's like movie makers, there's always like trends, right? So there was a ton of superhero stuff for basically 15 years straight, right? Nonstop superheroes. And then the response to that was to like go towards more realistic filmmaking. So everybody's writing stories about themselves. It's like I grew up on, this on Drury Lane, and and all the stories are like that. And then there's a movie, and I'm not going to say the name because I don't want to embarrass, but there's a movie I just saw recently where there's a guy holding a notepad and he has a pen in his hand, and instead of just writing like this, he goes like this, and that kind of graduated, exaggerated action is to draw attention to things. And what Tommy's trying to do, and what I want to do as well, is I want the movie to tell the story and not necessarily hit the person on the nose. Because, like you said, the audience is smart, right? We don't have to spoon feed them. We can let them think for themselves, and then that's what's happened with Solus. So Solus has caused arguments already because some people are like, is he a ghost? Is he alive? Is she dead? Is he dead? And that is exactly what we were trying to do. And I won't tell you, I'm not going to give you the answer, because the goal is to get people to watch it and really challenge themselves in their thought process. We want people to be drawn into the performer, which is right, exactly, acting for stage versus camera. Exactly, Evan. More theatrical performance versus film performance. And so Tommy is he's a studied actor, and he wants to become professional, high level name in his industry. He thinks like that. And he comes from a group, Chris Neville is another guy, a lot of SAG folks. There's a lot of dedicated actors in New England, and we just don't get the credit that other regions in the country do. And it's about time that somebody shines a light. And so me, I do the production kind of side. And so the business stuff, which, I mean, we were talking earlier about, you got to sometimes deal with money stuff. You have to be transparent with like contracts and those kind of things. That's part of the business. And it really shouldn't be something the director is dealing with in the middle of a shot, right? Right. And so that's where I come in. I'm good at that. I have my own aspirations, and I've directed in the past, I've acted in the past, and I have ideas about what I want to do. But for that to happen, if it's more important that I work on the industry as a whole and push forward these creators, right? And lift them up. And then eventually, if I continue to do that, I'll have plenty of money and I'll be able to make whatever movie I want to make.
Ah, that would be beautiful. I can't wait for you. So what's the wildest challenge you face shooting Solus? And how did you tackle it? Money or something else?
So
Time.
I think time was definitely the snowstorm, and then raising the money, right? Because we had such a tight timeline. And so what we did was we tried to be a little bit different. We had VIPs invited to the set, right? And those VIPs gave us the vast majority of the budget. So that's what ended up happening. So they got access to the set. They got to go into the rooms. They got to watch in Video Village. They get to interact with the crew, and that experience kind of led to the vast majority of the budget. And I think that uniqueness allowed it. The other thing is that Tommy and I do something that I don't understand this. If you are a young filmmaker, I don't care where you are in the world, promote yourself. You have to promote yourself. If you're on set, make a reel, take a picture, publish it on Instagram or Facebook or whatever, Snapchat. I don't care what you have. Put it out there, because hiding your script is not helping you make your movie. It's not helping your career get forward. So be publicized all the time. So I reach out to reporters, TV stations, radio stations. We publish everything on the internet. I use Facebook so much that people get annoyed. And why? Because I might as well. What's the worst that can happen, right? Is that someone doesn't like it. Maybe they'll put a little angry face on my post. I don't know. Maybe they'll leave me a bad comment. Maybe there's someone who doesn't like me, and that's okay. That you don't have to like me. But what I do is I care about my creators. And
Eric says, yes, it would be phenomenal. Every artist should get every opportunity to express themselves completely. No holds barred. Wish you luck, John.
Yeah, and so Eric, I agree. And I want to promote other people too. So, like for example, there's film festivals that I don't own, right? Like there was the Lois Weber Film Festival just a couple weeks ago, which is focused on women directed films, right? Most of the crew from that festival came to Dead of Winter. Am I going to not promote their film festival? No, of course not. So I pushed it out on the socials that I was going, and I went myself, and I gave my $35, and I got my little pass. In fact, it's right
right there next to your gnomes.
I plug Gabby. It's right over here. It's the big fat one. Of course, it's like on this thing. So look at that. There's the Lois Weber. And
Very nice.
you got to make sure that you just get out there and share what everybody's doing, because you want to know what, Cynthia, is going to happen. That means the next time I have a movie, there's a chance that someone from the Lois Weber will share mine, because I've lifted them up. It doesn't matter what they're doing, I'm lifting them up. And of course, in the film industry, there is a constant back and forth critical thinking process. A lot of it is a lot of whispers behind the scenes. And I just don't think that that's the right approach. My approach: celebrate my friends, celebrate other filmmakers. If you got a movie in a LA film festival, I'm gonna say, yay, you, because that's exactly how we all should be. And we live in a world right now that is so negative. I don't want to do that. I don't want to do that. I want to celebrate everybody. Oh, that's Colleen. Perfect example.
Film family, yes.
Colleen and her family. She has been a supporter of Dead of Winter and Dead of Winter Entertainment from the beginning, right? And at the Dead of Winter Horror Festival, she and her kids and John, her partner John, volunteered, and they worked with me at the ticket booth. They covered all kinds of things. When we ran out of water, they went to the store to get us water.
Thank
And
you.
that's the kind of person. So if she has a movie that she's in, I'm gonna celebrate it. And she was in a few of the Dead of Winter movies as well. I want to celebrate her and lift her up because I know how invested she is, and I know that her resources. She's got a family, but she still bought a VIP pass to our event. So whatever she does, I'm gonna celebrate 100% of the time. When her kids win, I win in my mind. That's how I think about it. And I think that if we have that approach to filmmaking, as you can see, and now I'm getting all excited.
I love it. I love it.
If we have that, and what way to build up people, then we have things like the Toxic Avenger, which you were in 40 years ago. Why is that movie so impactful? Because people loved the movie, and then they encourage each other. They come together in a like kind of a movement. You have people that are like emotional, sitting down with you for 5 seconds, right, to get a picture with you and Jen, right, and they're like blown away by that opportunity. And you're just a regular person like them, but you did a story that stood out in their mind because it was the story, and that connects them to you and allows us to make even more stories. So if I celebrate film, I might as well celebrate all my friends' films as well.
Absolutely, relationship capital. And Divana Conventions, who is one of my agents, hi, says it's all about supporting one another. I firmly believe there's room for all of us in this industry, so celebrate each other. So great, John.
Davina is spectacular. And see, let me talk about her. So she's an agent, right? She fights for her people. I know because I'm one of the people that she's negotiating with on your behalf, right? And she's ethical, she's straightforward, and she shows up for her people. And part of the reason I wanted to be on this is because I want you to know how much I appreciate you. And we're working together to lift up an industry, which, by the way, there's a bunch of faults and cracks in the industry because of various things. But that's not your fault. That's not Davina's fault, or Evan, or Jordan. I see Jordan Tofolo checked in, co-star in Solus. That this is about us building an industry that we want to be a part of, and leaving all that other stuff in the past and behind. And so I believe that's possible. And it's really just about transparency and accountability. So if, for example, I know a bunch of you have been in films and you've been with producers who said, oh, I'm going to pay you this, and then they don't, right? So how do you deal with that in an ethical way? There's only two paths. You either lie and run away, right? That's one way. And we've heard that. And that's why a lot of people don't want to get involved in the industry. Or two, you tell the truth and you say, here's where I'm at. This is what we got going on. And you do what you can to be communicative and direct. And then you put yourself out there and you just are honest and vulnerable. And when you do that, everybody is going to want to be a part of what you're doing, even if maybe you're late, but you'll get it done because you're honest. See, that makes me feel good. I think we lost audio just for.
Everyone at Dead of Winter and a lot of other independent filmmakers like Diane Porter and Julia Tuco Balina are so supportive and so amazing. Good, positive people recognize and celebrate each other and lift each other up. She loves and we love this positive community so much. It's always a pleasure to work with everyone, and we are family, and it's up to us to support each other and do everything the right, ethical, honest, and professional way.
That's right. And if we just kind of stick to that, then we can all the other things can be overcome. If someone, for example, doesn't know how to pull focus, we can teach that, right? If someone wants to learn how to swap lenses or learn how to clean the glass on a camera, someone's really interested in the technical work of lighting and sound design or whatever, those are things that can be taught if we start from an ethical platform, right? Even if you have the worst life story, even if you did something bad in your past, it doesn't matter, because what we need to do now is create a platform where everybody feels comfortable, right? So some of the things that happened in film sets, and I'm sure Cynthia, maybe you had to experience some of this, and I'm sorry if you did, but women are not always treated very well on film sets, especially by producers, right? So there's lots of things that happen in those situations. How do you resolve that? It's really not that hard. You just don't let anybody be alone. It's really that basic, right? And then you talk. So if Cynthia, you're on a set and you're in a position where you have to be, dressed maybe with less clothes, or it's an intimate situation on screen, we just talk to you. How do you feel? Are you feeling okay? Or I go out of my way to make those situations less pressure on the actor and on the director, and give them the room to actually create art. And if you do that as your primary thought process, while being ethical, while being accountable, man, all of a sudden, a lot of the problems that movies face go away. Right. So it's really not that hard. But man, it's been hard for a lot of people to kind of stick to that path. Really, really difficult, which is funny. It's very strange. Doesn't make sense.
You should be doing it across the board in your own personal life. And as Davina says here, honesty, integrity, and transparency. We should live that way anyway, guys.
It's really
Your whole
not that
life.
hard.
Everything will flow better. You'll be able to get more done. Yes, award-winning producer vibes. How's that Solus buzz been hitting you? Oh,
It
thank you,
feels
Evan.
great. I think that it's making it really serious. So I've had this conversation with Tommy and with other creators. So sometimes when you start talking about a project, right, it's not real. And then maybe you get a little money, maybe you get you cast somebody, and then it's real. And then you get a grip hired, you get a location secured. Now it's really real, right? What's happened with Solus is it's finished. It's really, really real, right? And so now we're seeing it on screen, and we're seeing audience reactions to it, and that is really making it amazing to me. Because now I didn't direct it, I didn't write it, I'm not in it, but I can feel my contribution to it because of what I can see on screen. I can see how this team came together and how their collection of talent put this amazing thing. And now it makes me want to do more. What can I do next that's going to allow me to make the next best thing, the thing that's going to be a story that talks to little John, some version of me that's getting pulled out of school by his mom and is going to inspire him down the line. What flying train can I come up with? Right. I mean, seriously, because I think that I want the same thing. I want it to be sustainable, and to truly be sustainable, it has to outlast me. Right.
Right.
I need to become, in a sense, both irreplaceable and then replaceable. Right. Because you can't always fill the room if you want an opportunity for other people to be able to fill the room as well.
Beautiful. Any behind the scenes moments that stuck with you from Solus?
So there's probably there's three in particular that kind of stand out, right? So on day one, we shot in the psychiatrist's office, and so there was a moment in that office where you have Tommy, who's a type A guy. He's the writer, he's the director, he's kind of the creative behind it. You have Stuart Valberg, a creative guy, a director in his own right. Another guy that, has a lot of ideas and passion, Stevie Schloss, DP, director, a lot of talent. Me, James Labonte, Jordan, Tofolo, she's another one who's a director, creator in her own right. And there was a moment in one of the scenes where Tommy won the room. And if you understand that as an actor, he took over as the director, and you could feel it and you could hear it. And then when that moment took place, I, as the producer, knew that I could now go do other things. Right? I could go make sure the food was delivered, and I could make sure the contracts were signed, and the this and the that and the other things that needed to be taken care of. And that really stood out to me. The second thing was, I got to have a couple moments with the two lead actresses, in Jordan and Devin, and they just shared to me how comfortable they were, and that really made me feel good. That means that I'm doing what I'm supposed to do, and that the whole crew is following that. So that was really good. And then on the snowstorm, so when I sent everybody home, we put a later call time on that third day, and I had a bunch of the crew say thank you, which is like, all I did was what I'm supposed to do, was get everybody home. But they all, and still to this day, I've gotten a lot of positive feedback because of that. And so that makes me feel good. The crew felt safe. The actors and the actresses felt good about their work and their opportunity to share, to be creative. And we nailed it. Yeah.
Beautiful. And you cared. You showed that you cared.
Yeah.
Careness and kindness goes a long way in every part of your life. Sustainability is your film's jam. So how is HollyWooot making it real?
Yeah, so sustainability. So this is that overall arcing process that, Greatest Grand Productions, that's Tommy's company, HollyWooot Film Group, and then Lean Into Production, that's Leanne's company. What we're trying to do is create a film industry that can sustain itself. So in LA, right, there's 6 different places that you can go to and get a rubber monster suit, right? That you could go and have it made and have it printed. In New England, there's 0, right? So to do the kind of work that you would need to do with prosthetics and that kind of fancy stuff, you kind of need to either ship it out or build a shop that does that. And so one of the goals of HollyWooot is to make that kind of thing happen, to make green screen, big time studio spaces available, to make movie theaters, and this is the key component, to make movie theaters the place where people want to go to see movies again, and to promote those local theater owners the way that they deserve to be promoted, to make sure PAs are paid. Big kind of thing, right? You got to make sure you pay those PAs, and then to create a learning environment where we're always adding crew. Working in props, I got to see like people on the truck that's carrying the couch into the truck, right? And sometimes maybe that person got into the film industry, they didn't necessarily want to carry couches, right? That's not all that you want to do. But that person is as valuable a person as the director or the producer or whoever. And I call this my guy with the blue ladder theory. Right. So I was on a set, and there was a guy who had a blue ladder, and he was standing around and he had the blue ladder. And then at one point, the first AD was like, "Where's the guy with the blue ladder?" So he became the most important person on the set. But his importance didn't change from the moment before the AD said that to the moment after. It just became the thing that was important in the moment. But that guy, the movie couldn't have been made without him, right? Because that blue ladder needed to be put in place for continuity and for the specific set design. And so once that happened, then that scene was shot. And I think that if you think about every single person as important as anybody else, then that is going to lead to sustainability, because you know what's going to happen? People are going to want to come back. The best directors and the best producers have the crew repeat themselves. They get the same grips, they get the same gaffers, they get the same DPs, and they come back and they come back and they come back. Why? Because they have been given the opportunity to create within their space, in a way that draws them back and makes them feel valuable. Leanne says this to me all the time. How are we valuing this person? How are we valuing ourselves? How are we valuing the project? If you don't have a value attached to a person, and I get it, it's hard to say this person's only worth $200, right, for the day. But that doesn't mean mean anything. What it is that you've said you're worth this, and I can't make this movie without you in it. And so I need to give you this to prove that. So that is a mindset thing that has to supersede sustainability as a movement. And that's how we build and build and build. And so the second part of sustainability is fundraising. When I was at Westerman, all the big movies like Black Panther 2, Free Guy, The Holdovers, Madam Web, they all were made in New England. Beetlejuice 2, none of them had their premieres here. Zero had their premieres here.
Wow.
They either had their premieres in New York or LA. Why is that important? That means that the film itself, the project, is made a commitment to the area. And you have to make a commitment to an area to believe in that area. You can't just use it for background shooting. And that gets back to what you asked me at the beginning. What got me going was that old school feel of a movie in Boston actually being in Boston, a movie in Worcester actually being in Worcester. There's actually a show that's called Kevin Can F Himself, which is supposed to be based in Worcester. And it wasn't shot in Worcester at all. And that is super frustrating for a guy from Worcester that loves my town. I love my town. And I want the people here to succeed. And so I need to do those things. And if we're going to say this is in Worcester, we're going to shoot it right here. If we're going to go down and we're going to shoot a movie in Northeastern with Allison Rothwell, well, we're going to shoot it in Northeastern, and the people from Northeastern are going to know that we shot it there. And that's because we're committed to this area locally. And that's only going to make the other parts of the film industry more sustainable. Because then New York can be New York, LA can be LA, Chicago can be Chicago, because we're allowing ourselves to be ourselves. And that means fundraising has to start here. So local businesses, local people have to support the arts. Listen, in history, you go back and you look at artists, whether it's Leonardo da Vinci painting the ceiling of the Sistine Chapel. How did he do that? How did he lay on his back for more than a decade and paint that thing? Because the Pope paid for
it. There we go.
I mean, that's why he was supported by a patron. So becoming a patron of the arts, which is really my overall goal, means I have to talk a bunch of other people into giving us money. And if they can watch this show and see what I'm about, I believe that they'll want to contribute to these projects that we're doing. Tommy's anthology project, that's going to be 3 films that are all going to win awards at festivals. And you know it, Cynthia, you saw it. They're going to win a bunch of awards. It's going to launch careers of different people. And we're going to show it in the theaters, and we're going to sell DVDs and VHSs down the line. So it's going to make you money, and it's not going to cost you $1 billion like whichever Marvel movie they're coming out with next month, right? It's going to cost you maybe $5,000, maybe $10,000, and we're going to give you the return. But the other thing is this right here. I'm going to go on these shows, and I'm going to go in the newspaper, I'm going to go on the radio, and I'm going to talk with passion about what we're doing and how valuable the people are. And if you're a business owner and you give us some money, like Spillane and Spillane Law, that's the executive producer for Solus, I'm going to shout you from the mountaintops. That's what you get when you sign up with one of John's projects, because that's how we make it sustainable. Because without Mike Spillane, Solus doesn't exist. That's a fact. Jeff Torres, right? Patriot Home Inspectors, RB Unlimited LLC, the Reza Breakstone, Lim Productions, and I'm going to forget. Direct Hit Capital. I don't want to forget Keith, because Keith would be mad at me. But so all of those people are going to get this from me. Evan has an investor. Her name is Mary. She's a spectacular human being. I love this woman so much. She supports Evan in everything that he does. And she invested in the X-Men project because she saw Evan and I's relationship as valuable to him, to getting his project made. And so now we have another person that's ready to invest in that as well. This is how we get it done, by supporting each other and celebrating each other as loud as I can. And of course, I haven't let Cynthia talk in like 4 minutes.
And it was terrific. And yes, and thank you, Tommy. You can go ahead and subscribe so you get more shows like this. Let me see. Everyone loves your passion. You've got a whole bunch of really cool messages here. And Diane Carter says, wow, John, love the passion you have. So you've got ethical accounting, you've got holistic workplaces. What do these mean in your world?
So they mean that I can repeat them. Right. So if you're holistic in your approach to humans and how you do things, and you're ethical in your approach to money and accountability and those kind of things, they're repeatable. Every time you don't do it ethically, you can't repeat that action. Right. So because what happens eventually, someone's going to be like, I'm sick of this, John, and I don't want this in my life. Right. So
Right.
now you lose a person, and then you start to get a reputation, and then you start to burn bridges. And then now what do you have to do? You have to go to another state, go to another town, maybe play in a different sandbox on the internet, and then you're constantly having to cover those holes that you dug for yourself. Instead, if you do these two basic things and then build upon them all these things that we've talked about tonight, then you can repeat it over and over again. And then you know what's going to happen? And this is my overall life goal. I haven't always done everything right, but I at least can say right now that when I leave, this planet to wherever I'm going next, right? That Cynthia feels I treated her with respect and dignity. That Davina feels like I treated her with respect and dignity. PJ, I see PJ in there. Jordan, that I loved them, and it was 100% real all the time, because that's how we're supposed to be. All the other stuff that you see in the world, that has nothing to do with what I'm doing. I need to be focused on me. I can only control myself. So if I do those things with love and passion, then you'll remember it. And you'll have that memory forever. And you won't have a negative memory, because I know what it's like to have a negative memory, and so do you. We've all been through really bad things. So why not repeat love and honesty and respect and drive those things? Yes, are we going to deal with trouble? Of course. Are there going to be mistakes? Of course. But if your overall approach is those things, I can repeat it. And that's what means so much to me. And the other thing is my mom. So my mother, single mom, right? Don't want to get all misty and fly around here, but she raised me and my sisters with nothing. And she had tremendous health problems her entire life. And she just focused on us. And I watched her do this. And so I think about that all the time. This person invested in me so much. And then on top of it, I have a person like Leanne investing in me. I have a person like Tommy investing in me. I have Manny investing in me. I have the whole Dead of Winter team investing in me. I have Jordan and Devin and Cynthia and Davina and Susie and Rob and Gary and Mark and all of these people believing in me, even for 1 second. I owe you guys everything I can give. Does that make sense? And if I do that, then at least you have that. Maybe we don't have enough money, right?
Yet.
Maybe we only have $1. Maybe that's all we got. But at least you know that I cared about you in the time that I was with you, that I was truly present, and that I was trying to give you everything I could. And that's all I have to give. So that's what I try to do.
Absolutely. Colleen wrote a good one up. Can you put that one back up? Your authenticity and down-to-earth kindness gathers people of like mind to you, and we're so lucky to have you.
See, I
Nice,
find myself lucky to know you guys. And I really, I know that we live in a world with, mental health and self-esteem and stuff. And I really find that the right viewpoint is to look at myself as flawed. And that my flaws only can be overcome by being with other people, right? And not to go biblical on you, but man was not designed to be alone, right? It's not good for us to be by ourselves. We should be with other people. And so the best version of John is with all these people, including Jordan, including Colleen, including PJ, including James, including Erica and Alyssa and Ashes and Diana and all these people. I mean, and the Rolodex of names like continues, all of the people that I want to be with all the time, they make me the best version of John. And so that's what I have to live in. I mean, I can't even explain to you what Manny and Leanne mean to me, what they've put into my life. I just can't even explain it. So the only thing I can do is show it by doing this, right? Even just right now, being me, and that I'm honest. And so when you hear me, when you're watching this episode, wherever you are, if you're live or later on, make sure you like and follow and subscribe to Cynthia's channel and give her all the things that you can give her to make sure that she's making money on these platforms. But that I'm telling the truth. You're sitting there at home, on your phone, on your tablet, on your PC, and that I'm telling you the truth. So you decide. It's either listen to something like this, invest in something like this, or go out into the rest of the world and deal with all that stuff. Isn't this a much better place to be?
And you learn and you grow and you can become better. Glenn Morshower is my acting coach, and he has a saying that I like. That's old, for all that old stuff. That's new. Goodbye. And you go forward always for the good. So it goes, that's old. That's new. Goodbye. And you just drop it and just go forward and don't even worry about that anymore. Just like the thing that we were doing before we started. You are amazing. I am amazing. We are amazing.
You're amazing.
I am amazing. We are amazing. That's how it goes, ladies and gentlemen. We go, you are amazing. Great works in the mirror, in the mountains, in the tunnel, right before you go on to talk on the Cynthia Manion Show. You are amazing. I am amazing. We are amazing. So what's the toughest part of pushing sustainability in this fast-paced industry?
Bad habits, broken promises from the past, and then burnt bridges. So like when Tommy and I have been raising the money, there's several businesses in the area who've had other people go to them, take money, and not deliver. And it's not that they didn't just deliver the film, but they didn't show up and they disappeared. They're gone. And so that's just being a scam artist. We have to overcome that. We have to overcome the industry's history with women. That's a huge, huge thing. Winning the trust of a woman to make sure it's okay for you to get a hug from me and know that I'm not asking for anything more. And if you only want a fist bump, that's okay. That has to be the start for men, and that's a big thing. The history of racism, of not allowing other people from different cultures and backgrounds to be involved in the projects. Right? Sometimes you're on a film set and man, it's super white, man. It's like there's not any flavor here at all. We got to bring some flavor onto this set to really kind of drive those things home. And then bad habits, man. There are so many bad habits that come from not being willing to collaborate. And I think this goes back to my history as a poet. I had an editor. His name is Willard Greenwood, and he was the editor for a long time of the Hiram Poetry Review. He probably doesn't remember me. But anyways, he was the first person who ever accepted my poem. But before that, he was the first person who ever gave me legitimate critical feedback. He wrote me a letter from a poem that I had submitted. And in this letter,
Kevin.
In this letter, he said to me, "Hey, John, this poem is good, but it could be great. You need to rewrite it and kill your babies." Now that's pretty dramatic. So, but I went back and I read the poem, and there were 3 lines in the poem that I really, really loved. And then I realized that's what he was talking about. Those were my babies. So I had to get rid of those lines and rewrite the poem. And I did. And then I submitted it to him. And it was my first time I was ever accepted as a poet. And I can't explain to you, but the first time you ever get a poem accepted, it's like graduation, getting married, celebration, birthday parties, all at the same time. As a writer, when you finally have someone say, "I like this so much, I want to put it in a book that I'm in charge of," it's unbelievable. And it's just like, as an actor, the first time I do tell that story a lot. I do tell the story a lot. But if you're not willing to do that collaboration, that is always going to be the barrier to making good film. We have to be open to collaboration. And I get it. You just wrote the thing and you put your whole heart into it, and to have someone come along and say, "Well, could be better," that's hard to take. But if you can't do that, the thing that you have can't be great. And it can be great if you're open to it. And so that's what we're trying to do. Me and Tommy and Leanne and Manny and all these folks, We're committed to making the best possible thing, something that's going to stand out and is going to carry forward the next generation of filmmakers. Sustainability, right? It has to last past me. It has to be able to go beyond John. It can't just be about me. So if that's what I'm about, that means that I have to be willing to let go. And if that barrier is still the biggest one we have, and it's trying to get past that, that is probably the hardest thing. Emotionally, structurally, financially, that's the hardest thing to get past, is that.
And congratulations on your amazing news, the Dirty Poetry Show documentary just being selected by the Massachusetts Independent Film Festival. Congratulations on that.
Thank you.
And before we close, dream project time. What film would you make if the sky's the limit?
So the dream project, if the sky's the limit, is to make my mom's book. There's no doubt about that.
I love that.
There's no doubt. If somehow I could get everything together to make that book happen, that would be it. Reese Witherspoon, one time when she launched her company, she said in a speech from the Oscars, "If you're a woman who's been forgotten, we'll make your story." So I sent my mom's script to her, and she didn't make it. So obviously, the person who's got to make it is me. I'm not trying to criticize Reese Witherspoon, please. I know everybody loves her. I'm just saying maybe my letter didn't make it.
Give her a chance. Write it to her again.
If I want to get it made, though, the best possible way to get it made is me. And then if I ever was going to make, I don't want to remake anything, because I feel like remakes are like too much, like they're always done. And but if you ever remember the book called The Little Prince,
I love that book.
So they made cartoon versions of it. I would love to make a live action version of that book, and I have an idea of how it would be done, and so that's in the back of my mind somewhere. Getting the rights to that might be tough, though.
Oh, I don't know. Just ask.
It's true. I could ask. You never know. So that would be something down the line.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, John, you've been fabulous. Thank you so much. We wish you all the success the world has too, and give you a big hug. Thank you, everyone, for joining. And you know where to go, and hit up his website there if you want to donate to any of those projects, HollyWootFilmGroup.com. It opens up really nicely. You can see some of the projects that he's working on, and you can see where you can donate to one, or you can do one of those cool VIP visits behind the scenes and see what really goes on in the world of magic. Thank you so much. See you next Wednesday, the Cynthia Manion Show, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Love you. Bye.